Today we're going to be talking about how to make the most of your doctor's appointment. That might sound obvious and unnecessary, but I think that it is important because clearly if you have a problem that you need to go and see a doctor about, then it's an important problem. If it wasn't important, you wouldn't be going to see a doctor about it. Most doctors don't get very long with the patients. In the UK, most doctors get about 10 minutes per patient, which works out at about 7 minutes per actual consultation. That's not a lot of time, and it's important in that time that you get out of it what you need to get out of it, that we do everything that we can do to solve your problem, and that we're seeing eye to eye to solve it in the best way that we can. At the heart of every consultation is a doctor-patient relationship, and everything else comes from there. Like any relationship, both parties bring something to the table. You are the expert in you. You know what it feels like to be you, to have your symptoms. You know what's important for you. I know probably a bit more about medical conditions and pathology, and I've got more experience dealing with sick people, know more about medical management and so on and so on. We can fit those things together to figure out what the best way of fixing the problem is for you. So we want to make the most of those precious minutes. We want to make sure that we're seeing eye to eye and that we're doing everything that we can do to make the most of that time. So it's worth thinking a little bit about what we can do to ease that process and to make things run a little bit more smoothly. And for that, it's worth thinking about what you can do before the consultation, what you can do during the consultation, and what you can do after the consultation that will help you get the most out of it. So first things first, what can you do before the consultation? Well, prepare for it. You might not get very long. You might find that you wake up in the morning, you're poorly and you need to see a doctor. But you're still going to be going to the doctor, you're still going to be in the waiting room, even if it's just a few minutes to run through things in your head. So start thinking about what actually is the problem for you. How do you describe it? If you're in pain, how would you describe the pain? Where exactly is it? When did it start? All these sorts of things, just the things that seem important to you. It might sound obvious, but sometimes it's easy to overlook things. If you tell me that you've strained your finger, it might not be obvious to me how important it is until you tell me that you're a professional violinist. Then the penny drops and we're on the same page. Remember, time is limited to some degree, so it's useful to have those important things ready so that you can express them and we can be better on that same page and better able to deal with things. Obviously, that then raises the question of what's important. Well, that's a good question. Think about what's important to you. That's the best guide I can give, because there's no hard and fast. Generally speaking, as much as I might love to hear about your cat, we probably don't have time to go off on a tangent nattering about your cat. However, if you find that you've started to get short of breath and wheezy and tight-chested since you got a cat, that's important. The point is that anything can be important, but that doesn't necessarily mean that absolutely everything is important. So just have a thought about what you think those important things are before you come in. If you find that it's useful to have a little memory jogger in the stress of the consultation, using a list for that's absolutely fine. But try and use it as that memory jogger to help you tell that story that's important. The other thing that's really helpful is to think about what you can do to try and treat your symptoms before you go and see your doctor. Now, you might have an idea of that, you might not. In fairness, going to see a pharmacist is often quite helpful for that, because they can often suggest something to get the ball rolling. Now, you may be more or less adventurous with that, and that's absolutely fine, but be sensible. If you're going to see a doctor because you're in pain, try taking some painkillers before you go, that sort of thing. Sometimes that solves the problem, in which case, brilliant. Even if it doesn't, then that's useful information. You've already started something, and we can move on from there. So next, step 2, during the consultation. First of all, a little aside. If you have more than one problem, say it at the beginning, right? Because generally speaking, we don't have enough time within an appointment to deal with more than one problem. But sometimes, if they're quick and you tell us at the beginning, then we'll be able to think about that, bear that in mind, and manage the time accordingly. However, if you come in and say, just need my blood pressure checking, then that's something that could be done in a couple of minutes, or I could take a full consultation to do a little bit more thoroughly. If I think that it's just the blood pressure, I'll think, brilliant, I've got a little bit more time to do that a bit more substantially. And then if we get to the end of the appointment and then you tell me something else, we probably won't have time to deal with it. However, if you told me at the beginning, then I might have been able to plan for that, and we might be able to do them both a little bit more swiftly. But generally speaking, one appointment is time to do one thing properly, and if you want something doing, you want it done properly. With that out of the way, the beginning of the consultation is your time to tell us your story. I want to know what's going on, in your words, from your point of view. Like I said before, how does it feel? What's going on in your body? What's going on in your mind? How is it important to you? Anything that's worrying you about it? If you've read something on Google and it's terrified you, then tell me. If you've read something on Google and you think, ooh, could it be that? Tell me. It's useful that we're on the same level. Remember, we do only have a limited time in the consultation, so try and keep your story concise. It doesn't have to be too brief, but try and keep it to the point and avoid drifting off on too many tangents. Like I said, try and think about what's important to you. If you're not sure, then say that and start telling us the things that you think might be important, and the doctor can help to try and guide that a little bit. Because that leads on to the next bit. After you've told your piece, then the doctor will want to know some more specific questions. Some of those might be fairly short, sharp questions in order to cover quite a lot of ground quite quickly. Some of them might be kind of longer, more open questions for you to talk a little bit more about it in order for us to get a little bit more detail, a little bit more colour about a certain aspect of it. Try and answer the question. I know sometimes that's a little bit difficult and it's easy to end up going off on a little bit of a tangent, but the doctors always ask that question for a reason. Some of the questions might be quite personal. When we do ask personal questions, it is for a reason. It helps to add to and build up that story. We'll try and do it as sensitively as we can do, but occasionally people do put a foot in it, and doctors are people that can sometimes put a foot in it. So if you think that a doctor is phrasing something badly, shall we say, and try not to be offended. If both of you can take a step back from things, then more often than not, then you realise that it's just a case of people not quite seeing eye to eye and being on a little bit of a different level. And usually it's down to a miscommunication and a misunderstanding rather than anything else. That can be difficult and it can be tricky to navigate, like any kind of communication problems in any kind of relationship. But if both parties can work towards it a little bit, then it can be better for everyone and it can get to a better place for the outcome for you. But at the end of the day, if worse comes to worse and you really don't get on with the doctor, then just remember you can always see someone else for a second opinion. People don't always get on with everyone, and that's again part of that relationships with things. Sometimes people just don't click. Now, a little word about medical jargon here. It is okay to use medical terminology if you want, but it's probably best to avoid it, simply because not everyone uses medical terms correctly. For example, some people use the word acute to mean severe, or chronic to mean severe. Neither of those things mean severe. Acute means recent onset, chronic means long lasting. That doesn't really matter, but the point is that because lots of people do use the words to mean the wrong thing, I don't know whether you're using the word to mean the right thing or to mean something else until we end up using a different word anyway. So it's best just to describe things in your own terms if you can do. The next step in the consultation is the examination, whether that's listen to your chest with a stethoscope or whatever. If you come in wearing 10 layers and a scarf and we need to listen to your chest, then you might spend 5 minutes undressing, which could be 5 minutes spent talking about your problem. You can actually prepare for that quite helpfully by making sure you're wearing clothes that make your body accessible. Then we'll get to the final stage of the consultation, diagnosis or some suggestions of possible diagnoses and what we can do to move things forward, whether that's some medicine or physiotherapy or some more investigations or whatever. Usually if there's a couple of things that are possibilities, then the doctor will talk to you about that and share those things and together figure out the best way forward for you. There's no use in us giving you medicine that's not going to work, but also there's no use in us giving you a prescription for medicine that might work if for some reason you don't want to take that medicine. So if you have any reservations about it, now's your chance to say that and to kind of work through those things and work forward and find what is the best plan. At the end of the consultation there will have been a plan. Now we have to enact that plan. If that involves blood tests, get the blood tests. If that involves taking medicine, take the medicine, whatever it is. If you don't think that you want the blood tests or the medicine, say that beforehand. Say that to the doctor. Try and figure those things out, because otherwise it's not really achieved anything for anyone. If the plan involved a follow-up appointment, make sure you arrange the follow-up appointment and do whatever it was that was the plan on the way to the follow-up appointment. That's really important because one of the original justifications for short GP appointments was that it can be more useful to have 2 short appointments with a period of time in between them than to have 1 long appointment. There is actually some merit to that because it means that you can get things started, get the ball rolling, and then take things a little bit further before you kind of do the next bit of the consultation, and for some problems that can be quite a helpful way of progressing things. So that is how to make the most of your doctor's appointment. Hopefully you found this video useful, hopefully you found it interesting. Let me know in the comments below. Have you been to see a GP recently? Has this been helpful? Is there anything else that you would add? Are you a GP? Is there anything else that you think that you would like to add that people might find helpful? Leave a comment below and share the video with anyone that you think might find it helpful to be able to get a little bit more out of their doctor's appointment. Click the like button, ring the bell, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.